The LA Clippers played their fourth game of their Grammy Road Trip, and it was the biggest test of them all, the Milwaukee Bucks. And after being up 21 points, the Clippers collapsed in a fashion we really haven't seen so far this season with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Going to be talking about what went wrong. Because boy, oh boy, a lot of Clipper fans were freaking out all over Twitter and everywhere. I'll tell you why. It's okay. It's all going to be fine. Where it went wrong and why it wasn't so complicated. Going to be talking about it on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I will be going live to talk about this game on Friday afternoon. But today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools and more. In this episode, going to be talking about the Clipper game against the Bucks, the fourth game of the Grammy Road Trip, and it was a tough one. It was on national television, and the Clippers found out some more things about themselves. In my opinion, the reason that they lost being that their stars did not close the game. And then we'll talk about Ty Lue decisions, lineup decisions, and then we'll round it out. But let's get right into it. And I want to ask today's pinned question. Where do you think the Clippers went the most? Actually, I don't think that's a good question. Let me ask you this question. Do you have any doubts about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George's ability to close games if they get no other player added to this team? That's what I want to know. Do you have doubts about Kawhi and Paul George's ability to close games even without an extra addition? I'm going to go over the game, like how it went, first quarter, second quarter, all that in the second segment. But let's get right into it, right? Clippers were up by 21 points in the third quarter. Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis started making shots. You knew that eventually Drew Holiday, he started out like 0 for 9 or something. You knew eventually he was going to hit. And he started hitting. Chris Middleton, who is coming off an injury, still hasn't looked his old self, is coming off the bench. He started hitting a couple shots, hitting and one. Crowd starting to get into it. That being said, the Clippers, you know that a road team is going to make a run. I've said it many times this season on this podcast, and I always say it on Dime Dropper. But when you're on the road, especially when you're playing against a good team, you know they're going to make a push. It's just inevitable. What makes a great team is the teams that can withstand that push with the crowd on top of them, getting loud, star player getting confident, and you make shots that kill momentum. And I'm trying to think what game it was. I think it was Atlanta. The Clippers did such a great job of killing momentum with big shots. Chicago as well. And I think in this one, the Clippers failed to do that immensely. Let's just read these statistics, right? The Clippers were up 105-99 with I want to say around 4 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. And the only reason why they were up 105-99 was because Norman Powell, this was 3:52 left. The Bucks called a timeout with 3:45 left. Kawhi put the Clippers up 105-99 with 3:52 left. 7 seconds later, the Bucks called timeout. And in that moment, I thought we had him. Norman Powell had 10 points in the quarter. He had 4 points driving on Javon Carter, and then two open threes. One off a Reggie Jackson extra pass, and another one with Kawhi Leonard drawing two defenders and finding him for an open three. Clippers were up 105-99, and then the Milwaukee Bucks made a big substitution that people did not really talk about as far as the Clippers side of things. Brook Lopez, who's one of the favorites for Defensive Player of the Year, was taken out of the game, and the Bucks went small to switch everything and give the Clippers a little taste of their own medicine. Drew Holiday, Wesley Matthews, Pat Connaughton, Joe Ingles, Wesley Matthews, Giannis, Drew Holiday, Joe Ingles, And the fifth player was, I believe it was Pat Connaughton or Joe Ingles, but I'm not sure. I'm sorry, Pat Connaughton or Grayson Allen, but I'm not sure. All I remember is Wesley Matthews was out there, Drew Holiday was out there, Giannis was out there, and Joe Ingles was out there. I don't remember if it was Middleton, Connaughton, or Allen on that fifth one. But the point is they were switching everything. And you know what's going to happen when they switch everything. It's going to cause the Clippers to play one-on-one. Everybody is so convinced that Ty Lue was running ISO. Like he's calling out, hey, Kawhi, I want you to just go one-on-one against him, and that's it. That's all I got. People need to, at this point, need to smarten up a little bit as fans. When teams switch everything defensively, it doesn't give you the advantages when you run plays that involve screens, which 99% of NBA sets involve one, if not multiple screens. So when teams are switching everything to snuff those advantages, that means that you can pick who guards you. And I will say this, if there's anywhere the Clippers went wrong, it's not that they went isolation, it's that they went with the wrong isolations. They were going too much one-on-one against the two best defenders on their team, Drew Holiday and Giannis. What they had to do was put Norman Powell in the pick and roll with Joe Ingles guarding him, and then Joe Ingles would be forced to switch on a Kawhi or Paul George. But instead, they went with, like, for example, Paul George had Kawhi screen him, and Wesley Matthews is now guarding Kawhi. Drew Holiday is now guarding Paul George. Paul George tried to go all the way, and Drew Holiday was playing very physically with him, and they didn't give him any call, which you should expect at this point watching Paul George. But the Bucks switched everything, and the Clippers proceeded to just play stagnant, one-on-one basketball. But the thing is, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be one-on-one basketball. The thing is, they can move the ball before they start getting into their move a little bit more. Get the defense to move a little bit. Give Norman Powell a chance to catch the ball and rip through and go. That's another thing that was a huge issue. Norman Powell was the best player in terms of scoring in this entire game for the Clippers. He has 10 points in the fourth quarter. He makes his last shot, and you don't give him the ball for the last 3 minutes and 45 seconds of the game. That is completely selfish on the part of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, who completely lost the game for the Clippers. No ands, ifs, or buts about it. You want to talk about Reggie Jackson being out there late? How much did Reggie Jackson really hurt the Clippers in the fourth quarter in this one? Was he good? No, he wasn't that good. And I'm of the belief, as you know, that Reggie Jackson should not be closing games. Terrence Mann didn't even play any of the fourth quarter. He only played 24 minutes in the game. Reggie Jackson's playing 25, and he's shooting 33% from the field. 8 points on 3 for 9 shooting and 2 for 5 from deep. But this game was lost on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George's shoulders. Point blank, end of story. When your two best players go 2 for 13 combined in the fourth quarter, that's not acceptable, really. You're not going to win games like that. Stars are out there to close. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard get $40 million a night. $40 million a year to close games. Giannis Antetokoumpo completely outplayed both of them. He had 54 points. I just think, quite frankly, you should be embarrassed as stars to let Giannis score 54 points and 19 rebounds on you, while you combine, Paul George and Kawhi combined for 33 between the two of them. Kawhi Leonard's 24-point-per-game streak, or 24-plus point streak, is now broken. He didn't play well. Paul George didn't play well. Kawhi Leonard shot 7 for 26 from the field, 1 for 6 from deep. Paul George shot 6 for 16 from the field and 2 for 5 from deep. They were not attacking the right ISOs. They were ball pounding way too much before they got into their move. And they have no one to blame but themselves. It's going to be one-on-one basketball when teams switch everything. In my opinion, what they should have done is one of two things. Either they get Joe Ingles or one of the weaker defenders on the court to switch onto them by putting whoever they're guarding in the action. So what they were doing, as I said before, you're putting Giannis, the guy that Giannis is guarding is coming to set a screen for Kawhi. So you know what that means? Giannis is going to guard Kawhi. That's not a favorable matchup. That's dead even. You know what I'm saying? Same with Paul George. Drew Holiday switching on to you. That's not a favorable matchup. Go away from those two. That's what the Clippers needed to do. When you play against switch everything defenses, you need to target their weakest defender, which is what teams do to us all the time. I don't know why they didn't do that. And that's not on Ty Lue. People need to stop babying these NBA players. You need a coach to freaking hold your hand when you've won a championship already and you've been in the league for 10 years, 12, in Paul George's case, 13 seasons. You don't need that. Okay? All he's going to call is a high ball screen. A bunch of times, it was them spontaneously doing things. And the NBA is a lot of spontaneity. I want to keep saying that. You can't have your coach just call every single play off the sideline. Now, should he have probably drawn something up for Norman Powell coming off a timeout? Yeah, he probably should have drawn something up for Norman Powell coming off a timeout. But that being said, it's on Kawhi and Paul George. At the end of the day, point blank, end of story it is. Because they got to close. That's what stars are there to do. And they didn't do that. Giannis outplayed both of them, point blank. And that's okay. You know why? Because it's the first time we've seen both of them miss shots like that in crunch time since the bubble. Seriously. We haven't really seen that. So it is what it is. Kawhi and Paul George didn't play very well. Kawhi had a bad game after a ton of good games. And here's the thing. The Clippers did a lot of things wrong. They're playing against one of the best teams in the league. If you had said before the season, Clippers going to lose by 1 in Milwaukee, it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. It's just the fashion in which it happened. I can understand the frustration. But coming up, going to get into all the other things that the Clippers could have done differently to win, even with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George bricking everything. Going to be talking about all that coming up. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. I got my Rams ambassador job on LinkedIn, and even if you're not looking for a job, if you're looking to hire somebody for your business, LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools that go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post, company, and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. It's the new year, 2023, and it is time to find the right candidates for you. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. So the Clippers dropping this one, the second loss of their Grammy Road Trip. They're now 2-2 with 2 games remaining on the trip, both of them coming in New York City against the Knicks and the Nets. But we're going to start unpacking this one a little bit. Let's talk about the way the Clippers started. It was a fantastic start. They played really good defense and just continuing to have that lineup with Terrence Mann starting alongside Kawhi and Paul. And by the way, Marcus Morris Sr. returned to action on Thursday, and I actually thought he had a very, very, very good game. 16 points, 5 rebounds on 7 for 13 shooting in 32 minutes of play. He was plus 23, which was the highest plus minus of any Clipper. I don't know if that means, I don't think he played the best of any Clipper, but he did his job and his defense was good. And I think the thing about the Bucks is they're a slower, older team. So that favors Marcus Morris defensively. It's the teams with a lot of quicker guards and ball handlers that he looks weak defensively against. But slower teams like the Mavericks and the Bucks, Marcus Morris is fine. And I thought he did a good job of starting out the game with a couple of shots. Kawhi and Paul George are being aggressive. Kawhi had 8 shot attempts in the first quarter. And one thing that I found very interesting the whole game that I didn't talk about in the first segment, but it was an absolute story of the game, was that Ivica Zubac was the one tasked with guarding Giannis because he can physically take the hits. He can't get posted up by Giannis. And when Giannis runs full speed and takes bumps, he's not really creating the same separation that he would be against a wing player where he could just truck them. And Zoo, I thought in the first quarter, was doing an exceptional job. Giannis's jumper has been not as good this season as in previous years, even though that's never been a strong suit for him in his career. But he hasn't been hitting his jump shot. So the Clippers were giving him that, and he was not hitting much at all in the first quarter. Drew Holiday wasn't hitting. And when Giannis wasn't just charging down the lane, their offense was very ugly. It was a lot of ISO, a lot of stagnant, because the Clippers were switching everything. And 24-15 was the score after 1 in favor of the Clippers. And another thing I noticed was Chris Middleton. He didn't really look the same. He still has some ways to go before he's back to being the Chris Middleton. But in the second half, he definitely played better than in the first. 34-32 was the second quarter score in favor of the Bucks. So as far as the Clippers go, it wasn't bad. They stuck the course and still led by 7 points. The non-Kawhi minutes, though, to start that second quarter were rough. The Bucks were making up ground. And again, it causes the conversation. Point Paul George. A lot of people are on the timeline saying we need a point guard again. Every single time these nationally televised games happen and the Clippers isolate and Kawhi and Paul George brick shots to end games, everybody goes out and says that the Clippers need a true point guard. And my question to that is this. When you're playing a small ball lineup with Zubac out of the game and you're playing with all wings, teams are going to switch everything on you. So you're going to have to score in isolation. If you really don't like that, go out and get a backup big because you need one. If you really think that your players cannot score when teams switch everything on them, then the Clippers need to go out and get a backup big so they can continue to create advantages in the pick and roll, even with Ivica Zubac out of the game. But PG was settling for long jumpers. Like a lot of this isn't rocket science. Paul George was settling for a ton of long jumpers. And that's the thing about Paul George that makes him an inconsistent star is that a lot of his shot diet is long jumpers. He doesn't take it to the basket enough. He doesn't get in the mid-post enough and use his 6'9" frame to shoot over the top of guys from a distance that's reasonable. He makes life a lot tougher for himself. And now with him playing point guard, he's dribbling the ball a lot more, and that can be a lot more physically taxing. In this game, Paul George shot 16 times, made 6 of those shots for 16 points. Turned the ball over 3 times. The Clippers only turned the ball over 7 times in the game. So in terms of improving in a category, taking care of the ball, the Clippers are absolutely doing that. So that's something that's huge. 2 games in a row, we talked about it, against Chicago and against now Milwaukee. The Clippers did a much better job of taking care of the ball, and that is going to take them far come playoff time if they can continue to do that. And a lot of that is contingent on Paul George. But as far as the rest, Norman Powell doing his thing as per usual. Hitting shots, getting to the basket. But where it all kind of started to go a little wrong for the Clippers, I mean, not really, but you sense that something bad could happen later down the line, was Zubac got his 3rd foul against Giannis. And the thing about it is, it reminded me of the NBA Finals in 2021 where DeAndre Ayton was guarding Giannis. And they let Giannis, the thing about him is they let him shoot, right? But what you are also doing is giving him a head of steam to get momentum running at you. And that's what happened with Zoo. And it's very hard to guard Giannis Antetokoumpo one-on-one with him running at you with a full head of steam. So the Clippers were doing a job of staying home on the shooters and letting Giannis cook, which is exactly what they did to LeBron a couple of weeks ago, and they won with that strategy. Now, this strategy was working up until 4 minutes left in the game. When Zoo came out, though, with the 3rd foul in the second quarter, Giannis was destroying Rocco, destroying Nico, catching the ball closer to the basket, quick rip-throughs, getting right into the paint, and hitting easy shots. So Robert Covington, Nico Batum, they were no match for Giannis. Rocco only played 6 minutes, again in the first half only, and scored 2 points. I really disagree with that. I think Ty Lue needs to utilize his depth more, especially when Kawhi and Paul George looked gassed after the game, or should I say during the fourth quarter, and the Clippers have a ton of depth. PG, by the way, came out 2 separate times in the first half, which I found pretty peculiar. He came out at the end of the first quarter for the last 4 minutes, which was normal, but then he came out for the entire last 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the second quarter, which I don't know about. The Clips were up by 7 at the half, despite Giannis' 20 points, and in the third quarter, they started out with a 7-0 run. Marcus Morris Sr. with 5 points, 2 points from Paul George on a pull-up jumper, and before you knew it, Kawhi hit a jumper, PG hit another 3. The Clippers are getting a ton of stops. Ivica Zubac, even with 3 fouls, was doing an amazing job on Giannis, taking the contact, putting his hands up straight, getting offensive rebounds. The Clips were up by 21, and at this point, it just felt like we're better than the Bucks. Like, we're simply, I think, until Chris Middleton shows us that he's still Chris Middleton, I think this Clipper team is perfectly fine matching up with Milwaukee. But when Zoo also went with a different look in that third quarter a bit, we put Marcus Morris on Giannis and Zoo on Brook Lopez, and they both did a pretty good job. I mean, Giannis was still scoring his very tough floaters and runners and all that, and contested layups and shots hitting, shots with contact. Giannis's finishing is just simply incredible. But overall, the Clippers were doing what they needed to do. But the end of the third quarter got a little scary because Drew Holiday made a couple of shots. Middleton hit a couple. Giannis hit a 3. That got me a little bit nervous going into the fourth quarter. But considering the Clippers still outscored the Bucks 31-29 in the third, and went into the fourth quarter with an 87-78 lead, I was still pretty confident that we had it. And as I said, Norman Powell, 10 points in the fourth quarter. Kawhi checked in with like 8 minutes left as the Bucks were picking up momentum. And you got to give Giannis credit too. He hit a ton of tough shots. He was hitting mid-ranges. He hit 2 threes in the second half, had 20 points in the fourth quarter, and just outplayed our stars point blank. And then you get back to what I said in the first segment. Stagnant isolation basketball. And coming up, going to talk about the rotation issues. Did Ty Lue go wrong at all? Gonna be addressing that coming up. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner, especially for Super Bowl Sunday next weekend. Locked On's new sports betting partner is the number one sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Just download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. I am going to be betting, actually I'm not sure if I will because it's a big-time toss-up, but Philadelphia and Kansas City for the Super Bowl for all the marbles. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Okay, let's talk about some of the rotation issues before we look at the stat lines. Reggie Jackson played too much. I'm pretty sure he played the entire second quarter. That is nuts, especially when he's not really hitting shots. I also want to say, if you recall my podcast before the season even began, who did I say was going to be the odd man out when everyone was healthy? Luke Kennard. But that's only because John Wall was playing, and I was considering him part of the rotation. Without John Wall, I would think that makes Ty Lue's job easier to play 10 guys. But what we've seen recently is Ty Lue wants to play 9 guys because he wants to stagger Kawhi and Paul George for the playoffs. And that's what he wants to do in the playoffs. He wants to keep one of them in at all times. I don't mind that, but we need to mix and match a little bit better. There's no reason why Reggie Jackson should be playing the entire second quarter. Luke Kennard shouldn't be getting a lick. He didn't play 1 minute in this game. Also, Reggie Jackson staying in for so much of the fourth quarter when Terrence Mann has shot 3 times and he's made 2 out of 2 threes and he is playing good defense and is a plus 21 in the plus minus. This is going back to what we were seeing a couple of weeks ago. Reggie Jackson has a couple of good games and now Ty Lue is sticking with them so much. It's not why the Clippers lost, but it really can help if Ty Lue just gets him out of the game. Him and Norman Powell closing games is a no-no. Norman Powell needs to close, especially when he has truly emerged as that third scorer for the Clippers. We know now, and I said that before the season, if you go back and I said, who's the Clippers' third option, it's going to be Norman Powell. And now he is starting to show that. So things are starting to go more like we expected before the season. Problem is, Ty Lue is his own worst enemy with this Reggie Jackson thing. He thinks here's the funniest part, right? He thinks we need Reggie Jackson to help us get into our sets, to have a ball handler out there so Paul George doesn't have to work too hard. Tell me what changed. The Clippers were still working too hard. They were still taking too many tough shots. Like, people really have this idea that a true point guard is going to come in and give the ball to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in their spots. What does that even mean? That means that they're getting them the ball in the, like, are you telling me that Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, like Terrence Mann, these guys can't throw simple entry passes, or they can't throw the ball to Kawhi and Paul George on the wing or something, or find them coming off screens? Because what you're essentially telling me is they can't make those plays. Because if you think that a true point guard, whoever it is going to come in and create wide open looks for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard with 5 minutes left in a game against an elite defense, you are dreaming. Unless Trae Young or something is walking through that door, you're not getting that. Because the teams are going to switch everything. And you know what that means? That they have to play one-on-one. It doesn't matter if it's the point guard, Kawhi Leonard, or Paul George. People say, oh, if John Wall was there, it would have helped. John Wall, you know what they would have done? They would have switched everything on him, and now he has to play one-on-one. And then you know what would have happened? When Kawhi and Paul got the ball, they would have doubled off of him. So that's not an answer. This whole, we need a point guard to get us into our spots. I don't know what you think this is. I don't know. I seriously, I don't mean to insult anyone's intelligence on here. I don't know what you think this is. Their teams are going to switch everything, and it's going to cause for one-on-one basketball. If you're telling me that Reggie or whoever true point guard that you want, Reggie or whoever's on the Clippers now can't make a simple, well-timed pass to Kawhi or Paul George coming off a screen or throw them the ball in the mid-post in their spots, then these players are not good for an NBA players then. They're not good. Because I don't think the problem is that, yes, I do think that entry passing is a complete weakness in the NBA today, and you see it with every team you watch. But that being said, I don't think that's the reason why the Clippers lost. I do think Kawhi should post up deeper late in the game because he's exerting too much energy. And I think Paul George should just post up, period, and throughout the game. But they still had a ton of good looks. Kawhi missed a bunch of mid-ranges and jumpers that he makes all the time and has been making. And Paul George, he did airball that three, and it was disgusting. He should have moved the ball and was dribbling way too much. He was clearly gassed. But like a minute or two earlier, he came off a screen, and Giannis was dropped deep, and Paul got a clean look at three that he went in and out. So it happens sometimes. So the moral of the story is this. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George blew it, 2 for 13 in the fourth quarter, and didn't give the ball to the hot hand in Norman Powell. They got to throw their ego out the door. I know you're a star, but it doesn't matter. They have it going more than you. Throw your ego out the door. He also had Joe Ingles on him. So that was the favorable matchup to attack. Anyway, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George cost the Clippers the game. 2 for 13 in the fourth quarter. Kawhi shot 7 for 26. I don't want you to point fingers anywhere else because that's where it starts. And that's okay because it's one game against a really good team, a team that the Clippers probably won't be seeing after one more time, and the Clippers should beat this team in LA. Absolutely. They're not that special when Middleton's not really playing like that. And by the way, so the fun fact, when Brook Lopez came out of the game, the Bucks outscored the Clippers 7-0 to end the game. So that tells you everything about their defensive scheme change. And when Zoo fouled out of the game, Kawhi started guarding Giannis, and it was okay, but Stan Van Gundy kept saying in commentary, why don't we have Kawhi guarding Giannis? Let me say something too. Everyone keeps talking about Kawhi like he's the Spurs Kawhi, like he still is that amazing, this team has so many great two-way defenders, two-way players. Kawhi's the best defender on the team. When are we going to stop rewarding guys for what they can do and instead of what they're actually doing? Kawhi Leonard carries a huge offensive weight and responsibility with the Clippers, so he's not going to guard elite players until absolutely necessary. Now, the question is, you know what? That's also a good question for the YouTube today. Tell me, should Kawhi have been switched on to Giannis with like 5 minutes left in the game? Because Stan Van Gundy kept saying that in commentary. Was that a desperate situation where Kawhi needed to guard Giannis? Now, here's my defense. Kawhi's already bricking on the other end left and right. You think guarding Giannis isn't going to exhaust him even more? It's a real question. Kawhi's defense still hasn't looked up to par. He's still been good defensively, very good, but compared to 2021 Kawhi, he's still a step behind. But that's the moral of the story. Ty Lue needs to just chill with the Reggie Jackson stuff. It's game 55, and we're still talking about his Reggie Jackson conviction. He needs to play Terrence Mann and Robert Covington still more. We can't go back to having that discussion. I thought we got over that. We can't go back to having that discussion. Luke Kennard being a DNP is a big concern because his confidence is gonna dwindle as he continues to sit on the bench. Paul George and Kawhi, a combined 13 for 42. You're not going to win games that way. Giannis was the best player on the court. And what did I say against Chicago and in a lot of games? A lot of times the best player on the court will dictate the outcome. And this was no different. The best player on the court was Giannis, and the Bucks won. And as I said, not feeding Norman Powell down the stretch. It's really that simple. But overall, a lot of good things still to take for the Clippers. They show that they can compete with this Bucks team on the road. Should have won the game. Let's read the stat lines. For Milwaukee, Joe Ingles, seeing him again was not fun, but he only had 3 points, shot 3 times. They were all threes. He made one of them. Wesley Matthews was also 0 for 4 from deep. Those were all his shots, 3 points, but he played good defense in the end of the game. The Bucks were 9 for 37 from deep, only 24%, so it's a shame the Clippers lost it. Javon Carter also 0 for 2 from deep. So in terms of their bench outside of Middleton, they were 1 for 9 from deep between Javon Carter, Wes Matthews, and Joe Ingles. Chris Middleton, he played only 20 minutes, had 16 points and 7 boards, so he did turn up in the second half. 6 for 14 from the field, 2 for 6 from deep. he made a difference in their win. I can't lie. Grayson Allen only played 24 minutes. He shot 3 threes, made only one of them, had 4 points, was pretty quiet. Brook Lopez only played 23 minutes, had 6 points and 5 rebounds, and was a game worst, minus 32 in the plus-minus department. Drew Holiday, typical Drew Holiday game. Inefficient, 4 for 15 from the field, 2 for 6 from deep, but 12 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, timely buckets, and amazing defense. That's Drew Holiday, and that's why he's an all-star. And by the way, I do want to give my congratulations to Paul George for making the all-star team. It's his second all-star appearance with the Clippers, the other one coming in 2021, and he definitely should have been an all-star last year, but he got a big injury right around the last couple of weeks before the all-stars were announced, so they knew that he was going to be out for a significant portion, wouldn't have been able to play in the all-star game anyway, but he absolutely was an all-star level player last season and has been an all-star level player for 10 years now, if we're being real. Let's say 9, because we're not going to count the 2015 season where he was rehabbing from that leg break. And then 2020, you can also argue he's in and out of the lineup. So 8 seasons. He's made the All-Star team 8 times now. Congratulations to Paul George, our sole representative of the All-Star game. Kawhi Leonard hadn't played 30 games. He, Anthony Davis, and Devin Booker missed out. Can't really be mad at it. Giannis, 54 points, 19 rebounds, 21 for 39 from the field, 2 for 8 from deep, so those are just not scary at all. 10 for 15 from the line, so also not great from the line, but he just gets to the basket at will. The Clippers, they played a 9-man rotation. Robert Covington, 6 minutes, 2 points. Don't like it. He was -2 in his plus-minus, so not even the data supports him playing so little. Nico Batum only played 17 minutes in this game, and I'm not going to lie, it wasn't a great Nico game. He was -24. He had a donut. He was 0 for 3. All his shots were threes. Could have used some of those. 4 rebounds. Made a nice defensive play here and there, but it's not a great game for Nico. Reggie Jackson, not great either. 8 points on 3 for 9 shooting. Thankfully, he only turned the ball over one time, but he shot 33% from the field. He did shoot 40% from 3, and I think that's why Ty Lue persists with him so much, is because of his 3-point shooting. But Terrence Mann, who played less than Reggie, 24 minutes, and didn't play in the fourth, had 8 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists, and a steal on 2 for 3 shooting. Even made a step-back 3 in the second half. I think it was in the third quarter. And then Norman Powell, the leading scorer for the Clippers, did not get a shot attempt after he put the Clippers up 103-99. Really embarrassing. 26 points for him. 9 for 16 from the field. 4 for 8 from deep. 50% from 3. The guy has just been lights out lately. 4 for 5 from the line. He still does such a good job of getting to that foul line. And then Marcus Morris, I already said, 16 points, 5 rebounds. Also had 3 steals on 7 for 13 shooting. So I thought Senior was good. Zubats, 12 points, 13 rebounds, 6 of those offensive rebounds. I thought he was really good. Tried his best to guard Giannis. It's a really tough task. He fouled out. And, I mean, that's the position that Ty kept him in. 4 for 7 from the field for Zoo in 29 minutes of play. It's tough that he had the foul trouble. He did hit 4 of his 5 free throws, so that's good. And then Paul George, 36 minutes played, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 3 turnovers, 6 for 16 from the field, and 2 for 5 from deep. Not good enough. Kawhi Leonard, absolutely not good enough. 17 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. That's all pretty decent. But only 17 points ain't going to cut it. And it's funny because Paul George was a +9 in the plus-minus. Kawhi was a +19. Still no excuse. Some apologists will say, well, Kawhi was +19. He won his minutes. That's fine. But it doesn't matter you don't play the game to win your minutes. You play to win the game, everyone's minutes. And Kawhi needs to make shots. Because if you want to use that argument, Giannis was +10. So both of them won. Can't have 2 winners, right? On separate teams. Kawhi Leonard was 7 for 26 in 40 minutes. That's too much. He's playing too many minutes, in my opinion. Ty needs to be more careful. But that being said, the Clippers need to do better the minutes he doesn't play. 1 for 6 from 3 for Kawhi. The Clippers shot 41% from the field, 36% from deep. It is what it is. It's a loss. It's not a good one. The Clippers dropped to 29-26, 15-15 away from home. The Bucks improved to 35-17 and 22-5 at home. So they're not used to losing games at home. Clippers could have gotten one of those big wins, been one of the 6 teams to beat them. They didn't. It is what it is. New York is next. It's going to be a tough one, but I just watched them play against the Lakers, and the Lakers beat them. The Clippers are a better team, should beat them. See how it goes. It was a tough one. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I will also be talking about the game later on Friday afternoon. Make sure to comment on today's pinned question, and that is, do you have the confidence the Clippers can create good shots, that Kawhi and Paul George can close games without another addition being added to the team? Also, answer the question for me of, do you think Ty Lue should have switched Kawhi onto Giannis in that fourth quarter? Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Now make your second listen game-to-game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.